buddy. Guys, it is Saturday once again, which means it is time once again to let it rip. Guys, happy Holy Weekend, Resurrection Weekend, Easter weekend, whatever you call it. Hopefully, you were able to spend some time with God yesterday, in Good Friday service, or even if you didn't make it to service, and that going forward this weekend, that you're able to set aside some time to recognize the reason why that we have for hope and celebration. Guys, we have kind of an interesting dynamic this week because we are doing part two of the conversation that we started last week. But as you can see, entirely different crew. First and foremost, I want to welcome TC back. Welcome back, brother. Glad to have you back on the show. And very nice, very nice. And then you guys got a chance for those of you that didn't catch last week's stream, he'll be back again soon. But we officially introduced Rico to the team. He'll be he will be a part of these going forward as well. So last week we started this conversation. How do we conduct ourselves online as Christians? And so the conversation itself ended up going a little different than I think I probably thought it was going to. We started talking about different expressions of worship online versus in person. What's helpful, what's not. We had to stop and explain that just because there are those of us out there who believe deeply in digital expressions of worship, that it's not in any way, shape, or form intended to completely replace the in-person gathering or anything like that. But we just kind of scratched the surface, right? And we kind of got towards on the back half of the conversation, we kind of got to really some of, I think, the more everyday applications of what it means to conduct yourself online, what's helpful. You know, when we come on these platforms and we have these different areas to be able to voice ourselves, you know, what exactly. Yeah, he popped out again. T is having some technical difficulties, but hopefully we get it all sorted. Welcome back. So somebody quick cast the devil out of T's audio equipment. So we're picking back up with that, and so T, I'm gonna go ahead and kick it off to you. Take it, you know, you're gonna take us in whichever direction we end up heading, guys. As always, in the chat, what we want you guys to do, couple of things. Let us know, where are you tuning in from? You know, we average on anywhere between 20 and 50 lurkers every single stream. We're not going to bite. Say hi. Let us know where you're tuning in from, what questions you have. Engage in the dialogue, especially because, honestly, a lot of you guys watching are hanging out over on Twitter, and y'all are the inspiration in a large part for why I wanted to talk about this thing in the first place. Don't get me wrong. See my fair share of nonsense on Facebook. Don't get me wrong. But y'all over on Twitter, pipe up. Let us know that you're there, where you're tuning in from, all of that kind of stuff. But without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to the host most, Pastor TC. Take it away, man.
Alrighty, hope I'm coming in. Definitely a fire smile stuff. First off, it's good to be back. I think we're on a very juicy topic. Was trying to catch up with you and Rico's stream. However, what I will say about this is that it's incredible to live in the time that we're living in. Let's go ahead and start there. That social media is a way of communication. There's so many different things. I know you guys talk about the expression of worship, right? All the different stuff that we can actually do on social media to connect with one another as human beings is incredible, right? Disciples, and especially Apostle Paul, living in an age like this, how it'd be crazy for them. It'd probably be really bad one part, but really enjoying the reach that they have to reach people of various places and location. Like we literally can take the gospel to the whole world now. I think just the crazy part about being content creators, right, is that we'll be talking to someone in New Jersey, to New York, and even to the UK, to United Kingdoms. It's like
Yeah.
crazy, right? That we have this extensive reach the way that we do. Um, but with that comes, well, human being activity. I've definitely had my share, as you have had your shares of people's opinion. Um, as you guys know, we were talking about women leadership a couple of weeks ago, or women being leaders in church. You guys would know my amazing surprise, I'll put it that way, of how I was exposed to people being supremely opinionated to being, truthfully, in my words, being this rude, being a jerk towards people in the comment section, towards people in the video. Not even so
Mhm.
much myself, but this really just you get to really see how people feel. I also feel like social media brings out the worst in us, and I'm not just saying that as to the whole world. I just feel like even as Christians, I think we gotta do better because the people I'm talking to, I'm assuming, have some form of history with the Bible, relationship with God. And so it was just crazy to see that. And of course, you already named one of the hottest spots in the world where a lot of nasty work is being done, and that's Twitter. And so it's crazy. I've always amazed how, um, for one part, justice could be done. Like you get people to rally together to go against the person who's actually doing something that's improper, who's doing something dangerous, right? Twitter, that person will get taken care of, right? But it's also amazing how narrative driven Twitter is, how people could make their own narrative and people could get canceled off of a narrative that's not even true. And then the
Yeah.
damage is done. And then a couple months later, it's like, oh, this wasn't even true. You're like, oh, I was telling I was talking to our church about this brick lady that happened at the beginning of the year. Well, actually, last year, and it carried
Mhm.
into the beginning of this year. And it was just crazy how everyone rallied with this woman who was lying about being abused. And the receipts came, investigation run. This woman extorted over $40,000 in the GoFundMe. You know, crazy. But in that scenario, when it was happening, this woman could do no wrong. Black men, where are you at? Step up. Men, where are you at? Step up. How can you let this happen to this woman right here? Let alone the receipts show that this woman has had a history of starting conflict. But in that moment, man, she had the world on fire. It's so much support. And so it can be dangerous. Our conduct is so important on social media because of these very issues. And we're going to, how much, I know some people wish we just could, I don't know. I think we're not honest about this, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. I know some people wish we can be better without social media. But the truth of the matter is, we use social media. It is a way that our young people are communicating with each other, and it's going to continue to be a way. It's going to continue to be new, innovative, and amazing ideas to come. But the thing is, how do we live with a consistent norm or
Mhm.
somewhat a dysfunctional norm? And how do we make something dysfunctional functional in the way that God wants? Now, that's the question is what
Right.
do we do with this responsibility? And so with that being said, that's the question starting off is our responsibility. I know we might briefly touch this last week, I'm assuming, but I think we should recircle it and talking about it again is what is our responsibility? Should we be commenting at all, right? Because I think use myself as a catalyst or a canvas, excuse me, for this question. I remember when I was on IG a lot. Now since then, I've been backing up on IG because I don't know, just not my app anymore. And I don't know, just this at the current time, there's just a lot going on with the ladies. I mean, I'm a married man. That's kind of had to restrict my Instagram access, you know. But while I was on there, I saw some things. I would say concerning the Christian faith, right? And I think one was on the comedian's page by Jess Hilarious, who is now on Breakfast Club, which is kind of cool to see her progression in her career. But there was I think, a cameo or I forgot, a collaboration she did with a pastor. And it was a clip, and I was just like, this is in poor taste, you know. I just was honest. I felt the guy was just very not sound. I remember seeing my pastor. I was just like, "Can you believe this?" He's like, "Well, if this was my page or this was my Instagram account, I would say something." Now, me, I like to stir up the pot. I usually just like to make my little quiet judgments and keep it strolling. I usually like to comment. I am not a commenter, so all you people in the chat, I understand. That's why I know how I can feel the lurk because I'm definitely a lurker. I'm one of those people that keep my opinions to myself, and I might share with others. It's very rare that I comment, you know, but being a YouTuber, I'm learning to comment more and engage more. But I was challenged to comment in this particular scenario. And oh man, when I commented,
Mhm.
oh my God. First off, I didn't think Jess was going to respond to a little peon like me, her having over 1 million followers. So first I get it from her, and she's like, well, what, you know the whole Bible or something? I ain't gonna say I know the whole Bible. I just know that's not what the Bible says. And here, if you'll let me explain, I can explain. And then the guy himself, I think his name is Pastor, I don't know, West or something. I forgot the dude's name now. He comments, he calls me a part-time or something
Monthly.
with my a monthly member. So he apparently mad his church. It was something weird. And you imagine the comment section was on fire. He had a couple of supporters of his church. It was like, look at this dude. He's a gaming pastor. It was just on fire. And I was just like, this is horrible for a couple of reasons. Because one, everyone I'm talking to in this comment that's come at me the most, besides Jess Hilarious, are Christians. And so y'all are reading your Bible. That's the crazy part. It's that I saw that because I feel like sometimes going to our church and we talk about these things is we notice that Christ is a people not reading the word and not really going home and taking it upon themselves to really study. But I mean, it's one thing to actually see it. And when I saw, I was like, oh, this is a problem. And then you got the pastor himself who, yeah, I just think again, poor taste. You know, one, he could have answered none of my questions. So he tells me I think it was like 98 I don't know verses on prosperity because it's about prosperity. And his whole stick was God wants you well and he promised to give you money, promise you marriages. I'm like, well, show it in the Bible, bring the receipts. Because if you're gonna put this out here so boldly, then I need the receipts. And so he gave me he attempted to say there's 98 scriptures. I said, well, show me the 98 scriptures. At least give me one. Man of God, they would give me one scripture. And that's what was so scandalous about that. So all these people are firing at me, but no one gave me a scripture. Because there's really none that God promises you financial complete saturation, and there's not one where there's a promise of children in marriage. And I know that's scandalous. Me and my wife talk about this all the time because I'm a person that we're not in a season where we're having kids, and so we might have to consider options like adopting. We might have to consider adoption options like foster care. And so this is something that me discovered early on that was scandalous for us, and that we had to work through and still working through. I'm like, the scriptures don't promise that. And when it was talking about birth, it was talking about Christ. But anyway, that's a whole stick. So it is to say, conduct is a very important thing. So what should we do? Should we be even commenting at all? Should we be even saying anything to this? It's just too worldly to touch, right? Because I think that is the line I'm wondering that people feel sometimes. or obviously they might clearly overstep. Let's go ahead and talk about it. I'm going to turn it over back to you guys. And chat, good morning, by the way. I know it's early. I know you're trying to get yourself together. I get it. You might be feeling me. You might be having a hard time coming, but we need interaction for this conversation because we're doing what we're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it up to you, gentlemen, and I'll get back in there.
We've got Cedric in the comments.
Thank you, because I'm having a hard time getting chat. Good morning, Cedric. By the way, there I got it going on now.
Morning, sir. Morning.
Okay, so I want to take this one. So we're seeing a fascinating shift taking place. T, you and I are a part of the generation. We are the last of anything that resembles the quote unquote old guard. We are the generation that grew up in a time before a username or before a screen name or something along those lines. But we're it. That's it. The generation that comes after us, they don't know that world. They were born into a world where there was home internet in every home. You could pull out your phone, all of that kind of stuff. So for us and for folks that are older, there's this relationship with the digital world that resembles more like a toolbox. I need to know, oh, hey, how do I convert this measurement from this to this? Let me pull out my phone and look it up. Oh, I don't know this fact. Let me pull out my phone. Let me look it up. I need to get something done for work. Let me go to my computer and let me go ahead and get it done. It's very much we pull it out, we use it while we need it, but there's this disconnect between, or I should say duality that exists between our in-person life and our digital life. That disconnect isn't there for the younger generation. And that's the thing that we talked about this last week. That's part of why I'm so adamant about trying to help older saints understand nobody's trying to come for the in-person gathering of the saints. Nobody's trying to say we shouldn't have in-person services anymore. But we need to understand how we can better communicate with a generation who has a seamless interlude between the in-person and the digital. It's all one. You can like it, you cannot like it, you can have this opinion or that opinion. It matters not. We've rung the bell. We cannot unring it. And so what do we do then with this giant toolbox? Well, you started hitting on something that I think is at the core of so many of these aspects of what are we using the tool for? Are we using the tool for jumping in and trying to prove that we are smarter? Are we trying to use the tool to quote unquote glorify God, but really what we're doing is slaying people with the truth? Now, I use that phrase, the truth, very, very loosely because you can have biblical accuracy, but if you're hurting people with the gospel message, you're doing something wrong. That's a different conversation, though. So we have all of these different ways that we can engage in a digital space, but it all comes down to how are we engaging? How are we conducting ourselves? And are we just using these small little snippets to just blast our opinion, put the other person down as quick as possible, and move on with our life? Or are we actually stimulating conversation?
Amen. Cedric, coming in hot. However, you can perfect the tool for his kingdom. The question is, what does that look like? I think it's a very good question to ask what it looks like. But I do, so I'm going to take a shot at both dualities. Joe, what you're saying, even what Cedric is saying. I think, yeah, again, like I opened up, this is a perfect opportunity in a space if you're a minister, or any form of, I don't know, correlation of you wanting to lead people to Christ. This is a perfect space to do so. But I think the problem is a lot of time what Joe's talking about is the conduct of how people do these things have been totally abused already. The unfortunate part is we come into social media, we just don't come in with our opinions and our suggestions. There's a part of our identity that's extracted into our communication on social media. And that's where Joe's alluding to. For us, it was a username. I remember those days. I remember dial up. I remember all that stuff, right? Pastor probably remembers all that stuff, when it was even coming in. But yeah, for my niece and people who are younger, this is who they are. This is how they interact. They exchange their idea of personal information is social media. And Joe, it cracks me up that we know how we used to, when we used to try to back up the ladies and the girls, our thing was a phone number. Their thing is a username, a DM, a Snapchat. The worlds are already different. And so I think if we're going to use this as a tool, first we have to figure out if it's going to be about God, let it be about God. If it's going to be about me, then we might want to be careful. And yes, that's already reckless, right? Is that how come I, as a Christian, can be mindless online and, or for lack of better words, express myself the way I want to express myself? And I think we have to be careful because it's a responsibility. Because the world's always looking at us. They're already looking to see what you're going to say. Now, here's the scandalous part. Some people don't know if you're a Christian. I think I'm guilty of this, and this is this is to clarify. Even in the gaming space, me being a gamer, it's crazy we can use mics. I was sitting here yesterday, I was just like, I make so many friends playing Apex Legends that it doesn't make sense, that I probably never seen in person. And that always blows me away. I just met a friend a couple days ago grinding out Rake, and me and she was having this good time laughing. But had me thinking, I was just like, man, I remember those days I had my mic on, I was just cussing and acting a fool. And I remember that one time where this guy came on and he was like, yeah, man, God bless you. And I had to eat my words because I was a Christian acting inappropriately. And I had to repent, and this guy was streaming. Now, thankfully, he was a small streamer. So I don't know how much it circulated. But that part was crazy to me because my thinking in that moment was this is my space. And so my conduct doesn't matter because it's my space. You're like, where you go with this? I think people take that idea a lot of times into social media, period. They're not thinking about this is a space that God can use. Everything in my life is a space that God can use. I think something turns off. This is my space. And no pun intended, a social web that's dead now. That's how old I am. Dang myself.
I just collectively heard all of my bones creak all at once. I'm pretty sure some of my hair just went gray, T. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. This space is I have a responsibility, where I like it or not, to let God live in every area of my life. And when you get into that territory, that's where you get a lot of fighting from people. That's not fair. I can't say what I want to say. It's my opinion. What about freedom of speech? And I'm like, if you're a Christian, I think we gotta be careful. If you're not a Christian, by all means, it's gonna be kind of hard for me to hold you accountable to something that you don't really believe in. Okay, got another comment. And Apostle, I'm gonna let you jump in after this comment. Here's where the youth who are committed and the experts who have done the work share what's important from every aspect. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and ethically. These frontiers have to share. Wait. these frontiers have to be shared to magnify what is important. And it's all leads back to Jesus Christ. Everyone who plays will be held accountable. I think you're right. I think there's some aspects of this that I believe you're absolutely right. And I believe going back to Joe's point again and your point is pioneers, which is us, the older generation, is how do we lead these young people in this? Because this is how they're going to communicate. And you know me, if it's not being said, I'm not a fan of any form of abuse. So telling people to, and you're always on your phone. Like I have a niece who lives on TikTok, and it drives my family crazy. And I'm like, she just being a teenager, expressing herself. I like to follow bomb her a lot, and she loves when I do it because this is how she expresses herself as communication. Now, obviously, I have to teach her balance, so I'm not letting her be totally neglectful either. Like I have to a lot of our fun conversations is teaching her. I'm like, hey, this is our time. We're gonna put our phone down. One social media head to another who likes to just mindlessly on their phone. This is personal time. Let's put down our phone and let's eat. So that's those practical applications, right? But what about her digital applications? You know, I have no problem saying to my niece who's posted a video about Christ and want to be on fire, and then a couple of months later post her dancing to the song. I'm like, I don't think that lines up to what you're saying. I have no problem telling her that because we built up the currency of relationship. What you're going to probably hear me say a lot, majority in the stream is relationship again, the currency. A lot of times people just try and stop people from doing stuff online, and you don't know this person. You just go off of one comment, and so you're just making your judgment off of one comment. And that's the scandalous part about social media is it's easy to do that because people are just leaving comments. You really don't get to see the person behind their comment. Sorry, I know it's a lot, but go ahead.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to unpack, a lot to figure out when it comes down to social media because it's kind of like the wild, wild west. It's open frontier. I think you were saying earlier that, oh, this is my space. I can do whatever I want. Freedom of speech. And at the same time, motive for me is everything. What is my reason? For going on social media? What is my reason for using the digital space? What is my reason for posting? You know, is it to make money? Is it to get views? Is it to get across my point? Is it to rage against the machine? Is it what am I doing with social media or digital media as we're talking about? We call it sometimes the digital pulpit, the digital corner, street corner. We digital soapbox. All these things that we do. In my experience, and I guess I'm the senior on the on the panel that this was, man, when this came on the scene, it was like, whoa, what is this? Right. And then, like Joe said, there's going to be people that they don't know a world that it didn't exist. Right. And we're sitting right in the middle of that, where there are people being born today that will not know a world that screen names and all these things don't exist. And so you can hide behind, you know, you can even hijack somebody's profile and become them. I mean, this place it's crazy the things that you can do in the digital space. And so for me, everything starts with for me personally, and this is not an end all be all, but this is where I start when I look at this digital space is why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why am I posting? Why am I getting lighting and microphones and why do I want a background that says this and says that? Because everything about what we do is saying something, right? We're purposely saying something, even from what we show, even in our the coloring of our lights and things. We're saying something. We're saying this is me, as you said, TC. This is my space. I'm expressing myself, and I think it's needed, especially from Christians, because I think Christians a lot of times they're hiding who they are. They're hiding behind masks. They're hiding behind goodness. They're hiding behind perfection instead of just being who you are, going through your process, you doing the hard work, to check your motives. I've had people just attack me on things, and I'm like, this is not even. I'm praying for world peace. Your Bible says everybody's doomed. Why are you praying for that? You must don't know your Bible. Your Bible is hateful. Why are you praying good things? Like, I don't think you understand who God is and what I'm trying to represent. And so I've learned, even in those situations, to share the love of God with those people, and they end up going away. Or I could go for them. All right, I'm gonna destroy them, right? But it speaks to my motive. What is my motive? What is ultimately my reason for what I do? Because I think that colors even how you answer people back. Is what was your motive in the first place? Because that will guide you even in how to react to the way people come at you. So.
Okay. Here's the point in the stream where I get to play the heel a little bit. So, and I'm going to heel on you a little bit. Cedric, I'm going to heel on you a little bit. I'm okay. So motive, absolutely. Yes. Like everything that you said about motive, that's part of it. That has to do with it. That should be considered, absolutely. Because so often, for those of you that don't know, for those of you that are just engaging with this, that see the three of us with our mics and our setups and our gimmicks and all this kind of stuff. You are not somebody with the mics and the gimmicks and all the setups and all that and all this kind of stuff. I cannot begin to tell you how often we catch crap because, you're just trying to put yourself out there. You're just trying to be a Christian rock star and all this kind of stuff. Yo, I would have succumbed to the Kool-Aid of popular teaching a long time ago and not gone the path of most resistance if I was just trying to get likes and views and vanity metrics and all of that kind of stuff. So yes, your motive is going to conduct why you step up to the plate. It's going to conduct how you engage with people, all of that kind of stuff. I want to go back though and square a circle with something that you brought to the table, T. Your distaste for social media. Okay, I'll be the first one to admit it. If it weren't for ministry and business, I wouldn't be on social media. Because the science is there. It's not good for us. You can like it or not. You can disagree with me. The science, and now years, these things are old enough that we can now measure in terms of decades of the effect of social media, because humans struggle with this thing of there is a layer of defense now. So now I get to say whatever I want and I'm not face to face with that person. Or what's the thing that we always say? What's the thing that the three of us always say when we preach, when we stream, when we teach, all of this kind of stuff? For the love of everything holy, do not take our word for it. Take everything that we've said and compare it to Scripture. But if all a person knows is what some teacher said, and all a person knows is Bible verses about love, okay, you may find some stuff where it says love or it's accurate, but spend enough time looking at those websites that are like 100 verses about this topic. They legit make stuff up. They throw stuff out there that just doesn't exist. Like it's either the wrong reference, or they've pulled a small snippet because it shares the same word or something like that. It's a flawed tool. that backs this idea of you hit it. These people don't know their Bible? Yeah, no. But it allows for echo chambers of people who don't know what exactly they're talking about or share a same opinion, even if they do know what they're talking about, and makes it feel like you're standing in the middle of a crowded room, when in all actuality, there's like 5 of you and you're just yelling at each other. And so we have all of these moving pieces that we are subject to as humanity. So where's the heal portion of it come in? Motive is part of it. But what is it that you're actually trying to convey? Separate from motive, because you can have the best motive in the world, but if your presentation is flawed, the road to hell, guys, paved with good intention. And I'm speaking, this is coming from somebody who, out of anybody in our network, I'm the closest tied to digital pastorship. Now, Ant's got his ministry, T's got his ministry. We have our collective ministry. It is a digital aspect, but there's a lead. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up, T, and jump the gun here a little bit and pull up this comment, because I will always. Okay, so the problem is, and I got to be careful here, Cedric, because I don't want to subscribe things to you and say that you're saying this. I'm just saying that I've seen this in other spots where something like this has been said. So again, separate from what you're saying, it's very hard to have a conversation with somebody who's in the comment section. So I'm not trying to live react to what you're saying. But what I'm trying to get at here is this: comments like this are the groundwork for just things like sweeping corrective statements. Christians, we need to do better. Who do you think you're actually affecting when you stand on your Facebook account and say, Christians, we just have to do better? Oh, suddenly my entire life has changed because you told me what I was doing wrong? No. Just like when we get into a comment section and we want to slay people with the truth, and in soundbite form just throw scriptures that are out of context at each other, so that motive matters, but our presentation also matters. And this is an extension of the very same thing that we've talked about in evangelicalism. What's the display of the kingdom of God? If you're standing there with this big grandiose display and you've got to come to Christ right here and now, and it's all about how I display the truth and all of that kind of stuff, or is it about cultivating conversation? Is it about communication? Or is it about, I just need to hurry up and hit you with the truth as fast as possible with zero actual context? So looking to motive and relying on a messy gospel presentation without attempts to try and refine only takes the ball so far down the field in the digital world. And part of this is where I stand on the shoulder of experience. Like to say, like I watched this on the right.
Yeah,
And you look like you're chomping at the bit.
because you didn't disagree. You just went to the next point as if it wasn't the logical next step. You didn't disagree. Motive, presentation, and then engaging in conversation. I can put that on a list and use it as a guideline. You didn't disagree. All you did was take the next step. So you failed at being the heel there. You actually agreed. I agree with everything you said. I don't have any disagreement. So I don't think that was being the heel.
So I don't know as though it was healing on you, like to you specifically, but healing on you using what you said to then go and be a heel towards some other folks who may be engaging with this stream, who think that level, that style of, I just need to present the truth as quickly as possible without engaging in dialogue, in conversation, and
Yeah,
things like that.
I agree with
Yeah,
you.
which points to what I want to talk about because since you're on that, is the entertainment factor. There is an entertainment factor. I was talking about, and ooh, I see why I didn't really post this video now as I'm sitting here. But I have the responsibility of talking to my church about creating a environment of restoration, compassion, and forgiveness last week. And I realized the more I was talking about it, that most of my interactions were coming from social media, as well as in person, of course. Like, not saying those things I was talking about are not totally applicable to people that you see every day. But I realized on social media, those were a lot of my examples. As much as we want there to be a safe place on social media, there's not a lot of safe places.
Mm.
There's not a lot of opportunity for compassion and restoration. And this idea really came from being a content creator, to be honest with you. Because and Joe, I talked to you about this. And I feel like you are trying to find the answer. I really haven't talked to Ant about it because I think we just talk about the other side of being a content creator, matrix, and finding things like that. But we don't talk about how in our own personal spaces. So I'm gonna talk about my personal spaces. I'm pretty sure everyone has their personal spaces, but as a content creator, we have competitors. Let's just be honest with you. We have people who are doing what we're doing, and the expression is used for that is called competitors. Now, personally, I don't see anyone that is a fellow Christian and a brother or sister as a competitor. I personally see that we're all on this platform to make a difference and a change on any social media web, right? But a lot of people do subscribe to the competitor. Am I going to make a big fuss over that? No, because I think if anything, I'll be kind of hypocritical because I'm still learning how to conduct myself on social media. I'm still working through my motives. This is a guy who got on social media, if I keep it 100% with you guys, wanted to get monetized immediately, got monetized, and still struggling with the idea that got demonetized because I was on my channel for a whole year and working through if I want to do content creation for the Lord right now as I'm speaking for you because of those factors. Working a full time job and like, do I even want to be on these platforms anymore? So that's a whole different subject matter, right? Is the gain from it. But on the entertainment side is it's crazy because I see a lot of Christian content creators talking about other pastors, talking about red pill content, and a lot of times I'm confused. I'm like, what are we doing? And they're sprinkling the name of the Lord on it to fit this very narrative driven agenda. And but it's entertaining, right? Like I look in the comments, people are having a field day. They're going in, and I even admit I participated in this. I think the beginning of the year I was doing a lot of reactionary content because I was trying to find ways to innovate myself, right? And I think it was just one video I was going to do about this guy talking about gamers. And man, I was going to lay it on him, y'all. I ain't going to hold you. I was going to lay it on this brother, okay? Because he called gamers losers, all right? And he's a
Mm.
fellow Christian brother. And I made, I'm going to let you know right now. The first time I recorded the video, it was ready to go into production. But I didn't feel right in my spirit. And I am going to use those words, okay? So forgive me for my churchanese a little bit, but I literally did not feel right in the Holy Spirit, okay? And I took a breath. I was like, what is going on? And so I went to look at this dude's channel a little bit, and I was talking to a friend. I'm not going to say his friend's name. He was like, man, you kind of just punked out. And so then I went to do it again. So I recorded the video again, and I have more fire for him. Okay, I had more heat coming for him, and then I finally just looked at his whole channel, and the whole crux of the guy's channel is trying to bring people to a realization of who Christ is. Now, his roughness with things, I think totally, I think could use work. But God asked me a question. He said, "What benefit happens when you post this video?" And man, you should have saw how I was coming at God. I was like, well, yeah, this false prophet needs to be shut down. He's saying gamers are losers, and God, you're not God of love. You're God of love, and you're not God of hate. He said, but what's the bigger picture? What do you think the world sees in this scenario? And that was hard. I was like, well, they see two Christians going at each other. I'll tell you something that messed me up. I've always been a Francis Chan fan for a while. I like saying fan like that. But I really respect Francis Chan. I really was in my 20s, read a lot of his books. He has this book called Until We Come Into Unity. It is really messing me up, kind of. Because it's like the things that I get self-righteous about when it comes to other peers of mine and other Christians, it has me thinking like, well, how do I actually come about things? Are we actually having meaningful conversations? So the short to my story is, I am not posting that video because I didn't feel like it was this aspect of bringing us together, and I had no intentions of talking to the dude directly. Now I feel like, I'll be honest with you, if me and this dude would talk directly, and that was still his conclusion, then I probably would make the video. Because at that point, I'm like, yeah, you're just being reckless. But I actually don't know where this guy's coming from. And some people might disagree with that. They just like, we should just make the video regardless. And I'm like, I don't know if it's so simple, black and white like that. And so there's a lot of content that's irritating about tearing each other down as Christians.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, I'm a guy who can't stand false doctrine just like anyone else. But the question I keep asking myself lately, well, who's having conversations with these people? Real conversations. Not pitchforks, not, oh, that church is just going crazy. And you got your little comments. Who's actually having direct conversations? And how come that can't be shared? How come we can't get on like we're doing right here? I like that you two disagree, even though you both are kind of, in my world, again, we're saying the same thing, in my opinion. I just think different flavors. But even this, how come we don't see a lot of this happening more? Where you have a dialogue of disagreement and you're working through disagreements and you come to conclusion. That's what I would love if I had a motive. That's what I love to see social media look like for the Christian right now. Christians are no better than those who they claim that they do not, that they have so much self-righteousness against. Matter of fact, in some cases, we're worse. I'm going to go ahead and say the most scandalous thing on the stream. We're worse because we'll get on the comment and just speak what we gotta say and hop off. We're not creating environments where we can actually have conversations about things. We're just consuming what the world is already doing. Yeah. And I think, I'm gonna use a word that might be scandalous. As a Christian, it's our responsibility to redeem these spaces. They're gonna be here, like I said earlier. They're gonna be here, and this is what I mean by redeem these spaces. I'm not gonna say, like you said, Joe, that one post, Christians do better. First off, that's a very asinine post. It's not gonna do anything. What I will say is a question like this, Christians, how can we come together and have a conversation on the social media world that makes us better? I think even the phrasing of the question could highlight the motive. Because I think that's what's happening a lot of times. We're just getting on here and we're just, like you're saying, you call out something that just irritates you. Sure, but even to my point more, you're kind of playing to my point, is I can say what irritates me, but the point of the matter is the world I live in, my personal world, that is the reality. People are making content right now about other Christians to benefit themselves monetarily. I said it out loud. There, no subliminals. There you go. Their channel is structured around exposing others.
Yep.
And they're monetized. We're not gonna play dumb here. They're making money. That's why they post the content the way they post the content. Yep. However, I will, before I get off my my soap, I suppose. I'll go ahead and honor some people that I actually enjoy watching that I feel like has a very, if I had to say what balance would look like, I like Nick Jones. Nick Jones is probably one of my favorite persons because he could talk about something and correct it, but still have a conversation around it. But even on his channel, people are still walking away with this person is an absolute mess. But I like his channel because there's awareness being brought. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to bring awareness. He's not bashing the person. A lot of times these people that I'm watching, they're being scriptures as much as the person that they say is been in scripture. Mm. The only difference is they're just using more fancier language. It's like, right. Still doing the same thing. Okay, I'm done. But I want you guys to go ahead and get in there.
I think part of the issue is when there's no sense of accountability, what is going to come out? If I feel like I've got the freedom to say whatever I please without fear of recourse, then what's going to come out is really going to reflect how I view that person. Do I view them as an image bearer? Do I view them as a worthwhile human being? And that's part of why I think the whole motive conversation, you need to immediately have part B of the conversation and part C and part D, because motivation isn't just as simple as I have the motivation to tell people about Christ. Okay. That you can start that conversation. I have a motivation to share the word of God. Okay, great. But at the same token, do you have a motivation to engage with other people? Or and this kind of goes into into what you said, T. You guys all, I don't hide my emotions. When I am live reacting to something that the crew sees, you all see it on my face. I really don't like the word redeemed. And I will be the first one to admit part of it, at least part of it. There are some times where it's misused, but regardless of how often it's misused, part of that is a biasness because of how many times that I've seen it misused. And how often it's like, we need to come into the world and we need to redeem this and redeem that. And it's really just a matter of, we need to get other people to play by our playbook. We need to get people to turn or burn. And I'm not, again, T, I'm not putting words in your mouth. But it's that idea. It brings about that idea of, we need to step into a situation and show people what to do or save a situation. And there's all of these implications when using the word redeemed that I think need to be addressed, because the thing that we haven't really quite hit, but we have hit in a dance around sense. Optics matter. Like it or not. When you do something without the ability of, Ant, if you go up to the pulpit and you say something that to anybody else might be out of pocket, but the church knows the context, they understand that you're biblically sound, there's a runway for what you're saying because you're speaking to a situation within that church, within that group of people, that's completely different than if you were to blast that up on social media.
Yep.
Because there's context. When you put something on social media or YouTube or any of the online spaces, right? You don't get the ability to be able to contextualize anything about what you are saying. So when you step out here, and I might as well, if I'm gonna hit one, I'll hit all of them. Christians do better. Oh, guys, get ready. God's getting ready to do this major thing. Oh, wait a minute. Or we as Christians just need to, or these statements that are trying to be all inclusive, but really you had your own thing in mind. You had your own thing that you were trying to, that you were trying to speak to, but you put it out on a billboard. You put it out on a digital billboard for everybody and their mother to see. That's what you're dealing with in the digital world. And so, to your point with the entertainment thing, it's the old adage, right? Controversy creates cash. It's just the reality. That's been humans for all. Why do you think traffic slows down when there's an accident? Because everybody's sitting there like, what's happening? But that's what humans want to do. They want to watch people get at it. And I'll agree with you, T. In my experience, and I've broadcasted on terrestrial radio, streaming. I've been a podcaster. I've been a videographer. I've been involved in the media world in a lot of different ways. Pretty much the only thing I've never done is worked on a motion picture production. The single most egregious group of people when it comes to this are Christians. 110%, without a doubt. There isn't even a second runner up. Christianity in the West has gone. They're lapping everybody at this point. It's just the truth, because there's so many different little nuancy things that we can disagree on, and then when you add the entertainment factor into it, T, you get these moments of, I want to make this sound kitschy. So I'm going to take this biblical truth, right? I'm going to take this thing that is truth, right? It's scripture. And then I want to make it sound kitschy, and I'm going to say it in a way that's real smooth and all that kind of stuff. But the question you have to ask yourself is, A, why do you feel the need to take what was already said and say it a different way? Yes, there's arguments to be made for doing that. And I've openly advocated for those. So take what I'm saying with the full context of what my ministry is, what I do as a pastor, and all of that kind of stuff. But at that same token, though, how far can we pull this context to be before it eventually is just, this has now become something entirely different, and like, whoa, wait a minute, what are you saying there? All right,
real quick. And that was good. Cedric, actually, I realized I kind of evaded your question. I read it wrong. So first off, on there, I want to apologize. See, we can do that. T, that's your call. Is that your call, or is that something that irritates you? I think it's a good question, and I did just see your comment that just came in, by the way, too. So I'm gonna get to that, but before you go, I want to take my time with this one, because if you would have asked me this question a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, I will say that was my calling. And I'm going to talk to the irritate part. But I think that's the problem, is even language. And pastors probably already know where I'm going with this word calling. My calling is not just to always a place or a thing, because the scripture tells us what our calling is. The Bible declares we're called out of darkness into light, into his marvelous light. So I'm called into Christ first. Now, it's my function in Christ as a pastor, which are my gifts. Those expound, which is incredible, like I said at the beginning of the stream, dimensions now. Because now my pastoring is not just confined to local. I remember becoming the pastor, I was like, what am I going to do? Because I'm not like the traditional pastor. I can't see myself being a traditional pastor in the sense of just always being in the pulpit. And I'm kind of glad that when I was going through the ordination program at CCF, and even sitting with my pastor and my apostle, that I realized that I am who I am, the way God created me to be. Yes, I preach in the pulpit. I do. I preach on fourth Sundays. And I've taught multiple times in my church. But my pastoring is not just limited to those places. They expound everywhere. And so my calling is derivative from who God made me to be, being pulled out of darkness into his marvelous light. And the purpose as together as a church, as a whole, right, globally, is of course to be in this world and to make disciples and to be a light and to proclaim and glorify God. That's why we're here on the earth, is to draw other men to Christ. Otherwise, if we weren't, we'll be I don't know, we'd be going home. This would be with God already. So that expounds, it extends to social media, which is where I'm a part of, which is, and to clarify why I use the word redeem. So it's a personal word for me. But I can see, Joe, I want to say that was a good point that you made, a good counter to that, because I've seen that. So I want to say I also agree how people have literally done kooky stuff with that. This is what I mean by redeem. Is that these are the things that I use in the area that I'm around. And I could complain about how wrong everyone is, or I could do my responsibility and try to create environments of restoration. So something that was meant for evil, right? Men destroying each other on social media, going at each other, men profiting off of the minds of others. I can redeem this and say, well, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to take my responsibility and my part and have conversations about God, create communities where people can feel free to disagree, but at the same time learn, but also be challenged. Create environments where people are actually challenged and they have to go back and slow down and be ready for those conversations again. To the other point, I don't do it because I am irritated. If I was doing it because I was irritated, oh man. For one, you be getting some very toxic videos. Oh, you be getting some toxic videos. If I was exposed my conversations with both of these brothers on the stream, they will attest that, oh yeah, you be getting some crazy stuff out of my irritation. Because I'm always irritated. There's always something I look at social media. That's so dumb. I'm just keeping it stack.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying this on the stream is a lot of times I'm slowing down. Reason why I don't comment a lot on any videos that I see is because a lot of times I'm like, that's just how you feel. That's not even the universal truth. That's not God's truth. That's how you feel in the moment. Someone said something wrong and it just made you mad.
Yeah.
To the point where there's times where I'm sitting with God, I'm like, I think I might need to say something.
Right.
And something is not always controversial. It could be encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think, again, not to bring up this content creator again, I was like, I was feeling led to leave an encouraging comment. Now, do I know if he's going to see that? No, I'm doing what it's been inspired for me for the Holy Spirit to do. You know, and I guess that's a point I'm trying to bring home on top of your point, right? Is every individual has a responsibility. And that is, whether you're a Christian or not Christian, a responsibility. You talk about image bearing, right? Of respecting one another. However, I will, unfortunately, I hate to use it like that, charge a Christian more because you've been brought into his marvelous light. Your responsibility is to show his love.
Yeah.
You can't take a day off just because you're on social media and you don't feel like being a Christian. That's not how this works. You're always a child of God in these environments. You belong to him. And saddest day is not going to be judgment day. The saddest day is if you run to that person and your conduct online has been crazy and then you actually run into that person.
Wow.
Yep.
That's scary. That fear, I'll be honest with you, it's some personal stuff, real life. That fear will cause me to leave my mic muted when I play a game. That fear is why there's just certain games I won't play on stream. I'm keeping it a stat because that's scary. Oh yeah, that's the dude that was cussing out the teammate who did the res. Ooh, he a Christian?
He a pastor?
Ooh, pastor? That's scary to me.
Yeah.
And I don't think we live in that duality a lot of times.
Mhm.
Is that, well, no one can see me behind this screen. I love how you brought that up earlier, Joe, is no one can see me.
Yeah.
But what if they do?
Yeah.
What if you leave a reckless comment and then you go to work not knowing that your coworker then followed you?
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute. You the one that was telling me to be praying. You was the one telling me to be kind. And you left this crazy comment. Years of rapport. Years of relationship building. Years of credibility gone off of one comment. Yeah, that's how we want to talk about.
Yep.
This is why we go to the question, is this helpful? Yeah, it's helpful. Because we want to be reckless. Let's keep it stacked. We want to get on here, say what we feel, and then go on to the next thing. I know we didn't highlight Facebook earlier. I think you were trying to, Joe. But Facebook is just as bad. Oh, my God. People make... I'll never forget Facebook when I first really started getting Facebook. I was like, this is crazy. That I could make a post about how I feel. They know what they're getting themselves into.
Yep.
That I can get on here, and what I say is what I say.
Yeah. Unrestricted access into the mind of a human being is a terrifying concept.
Fine. And this is why the science, I believe, is true. You know, now obviously, is it too gloomy that we don't do what we're doing right now, live stream? No. I think this is why we're doing what we're doing. But yeah, there is a scariness that human beings don't know how to interact with each other, period. Like, I go to school, and my heart just breaks. I was like, these kids, and you know, and all jokes aside, right, I'm about to make a joke because I'm about to date myself. They don't know how it will ever feel to go outside, throw a snowball at a random kid, or do something weird at the park, and make a friend out of nowhere. That was my experience because we had Super Nintendo. I think some cases we had N64, right? And we started getting advanced PS2 when they were trying to crack the online competition. But people will never understand that I met one of my best friends growing up, throwing a snowball at him after school. Didn't know who this kid is. Just drew a snowball at me. Like, why is this kid throwing snowballs at me? Made me mad. And so I started throwing it back. Next thing we had the biggest snowball fight. Me and this dude became the closest friends. My heart breaks because I think a lot of times kids will never have interactions like that. Well, they're a human being in the sense of that type of connection. Now, will they have it on social media? No, let me say this real quick. So I'm not trying to counter my response. Like I said, I made some powerful relationships online. I'll never forget when I was building my Twitch community. I have friends I've never seen with my eyes, but we're close. The point I am making is the difference between those two relationships is me and this guy had to work some out personally, face to face, versus there's this evasiveness where things are online. And what do I mean by evasive? Just because you can say some scandalous doesn't mean you are actually facing the person. And you talked about this, Joe. How, man, if you didn't have this screen, you wouldn't even have the gall to say what you just said. That
you wouldn't say that to me
face to face. So there's this dangerous recklessness of that as well because we don't see people on a face-to-face basis. Last thing, and I'm gonna get off my soapbox. COVID-19, I think, did make it worse. Not because of the social distancing. Well, maybe it actually was. Because it really did make us hide from each other more. And by all means, I'm not going to tell people not to wear masks and all. You're not going to get that out of me. Keep yourself safe, buddy. But I will say, I will say, it did feed our fears of one to isolate. I think right now we're knocking on doors, right, as a church. And let me go ahead and tell you right now, struggle bus is real. Every social fiber in me is going crazy. Every insecurity happens when I knock on these doors. But I think the person I was talking to when I finally got somebody, because we're evangelized, that's how we're doing our evangelism right now in our church. He talked about his experience being a neighbor and how there was a time where if something was wrong, the other neighbor will knock on each other's door and say something was wrong. Versus now, it's not even safe for your kid to go outside and play. That is kind of heartbreaking. That is jarring. Because the safety for a child now is to be online. Outside is more scarier, and online is more safer. That's heartbreaking to me. Not that I'm trying to tell people how to condone their life and that kids should go outside and play more. That'd be nice on a personal bias level. But I think it's hurtful that we don't understand that social media really is someone's safe spot because of all the recklessness that happens. That can't be a safe spot. That's someone's safety right now. That's how people are trying to rationalize their reality, is strolling. And I don't know, I just want to slow that down, because this is why there's so much passion. This is why there's so much recklessness. It's because this is somebody's safe space. And I don't know about you, but when someone comes from my safe space, there's a lot of resistance. When someone tries to invade my safe spot, and God being him, when God says, hey, I want this area of your life, I'm not going to always say that there's not a sense of resistance. Because this is my, like I said earlier, this is my space. This is where I feel like I have a voice. This is where I feel like I can express myself. This is a place where I could feel like I can validate myself. That's why you got people at work who won't tell their other coworkers that they even have a channel. And when a coworker, I didn't know you did that, because I don't feel safe telling you that. Isn't that crazy that there's people who have platforms and they work at job, but they feel ashamed to talk about it because they're trying to conceal themselves from another human being because they don't feel safe.
Yeah, I was really hoping that you were going to kick in, because there's so much of that I think the foundation. I think you put an apple and an orange together and tried to call it a fruit salad. I don't.
Oh, sorry, that expression was crazy, bro.
Yeah.
You very undefeated with those comments.
And so I'm parsing out the parts that yeah, I agree with some of what you said, but the lead up there is just
Yeah, I think I was just I didn't actually know where to go with it. Just like, okay, we'll just leave that there, and hopefully there's another question that needs to be asked or something. You know,
Fruit salad.
So,
but let me ask.
I
Can I
think
ask this? I just want to ask this question, because this kind of been, and maybe this will help me to flesh out what I'm hearing, is that when it comes down to this digital, because when you were talking, T, it the word world, digital world, that this is
Mhm.
actually a world. This is a a place in itself, right? And people can escape into this world and make, I don't know, they can create identity, they can create persona, they can create, you know, all
Yep.
kinds of things in this digital world, you know. And I think all of us, including T, we try our best to be who we are in this world and in the world at large, right? We're trying to
Yep.
be the same person. I want to be the same
Yep.
guy here that I am sitting down at a Philly cheesesteak place with you, Joe, talking about boxing or movies, or with TC, at a Jersey Mike's, or over a cup of coffee, talking about social media or gaming or the gospel or any of these things that we talk about. That as a person, I am diverse. I'm not just one thing. I'm not just what do you call it? Pastor or apostle, or I'm also a guy who likes sports. I'm also a guy who is a boxing fanatic. I'm watching old boxing from 1970, and watching the entire match. Like, why are you watching that? It looks old, and the video footage is not good, but it's still interesting to me. I'm a movie guy, and being all that, right? And then getting in front of this camera right here with this thingamajig in front of me, you know, and
It's a technical.
right, and am I being the same person? And what does it mean for me to be authentic? Does it mean that I have to go push the envelope? Does it mean that I'm okay to relax and be who I am? Do I have to turn something on? Like, okay, I got to turn on my personality, right? I got to turn on this. All right, hey guys, it's yeah, or can I just be who I am? Talk about the subjects that we talk about, disagree about things when we disagree, or whatever that is. And so this is a world, though, that some people, as you said, TC, have never met me outside of this world.
Yeah.
And because they've never met me outside of this world, what even would it be like? I've had, like you guys, I've had conversations with people through, online ministry, that ended up into email conversations, that end up into, Zoom calls. And I got to actually, talk to this person through a Zoom call and have a conversation and build relationship. As a matter of fact, a lot of you don't know the backstory, but I met Joe Day through the Anchor podcast. I left him a message on Anchor. This
Right.
guy responded, and the next thing you know, I don't know, what is it, 3 years later, almost 4 years
So,
later,
yeah, something like
you
that.
know, we have a relationship beyond what you see on this stream. We talk, and we've hung out, and he's been to my town, I've been to his town, and we have a relationship outside of this world. But
Right.
there's people that only see us in this world.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about this being a safe space for some people, I can kind of fathom that, because in itself, because of how powerful the digital space is, you can have relationships with people across the globe that you may never sit face to face with. But this is the place where you interact with them. And can we say that this is real? Can we say that this is genuine? I think that's where people struggle. Like, is this more real than the friends that I have that are next door? Right?
Mm.
Because I may not even know the person that lives next door to me, but I talk to a person who lives in, the United Emirates on a
Right.
regular basis, right? But I
Right.
don't know the person that lives in the apartment or the house next door to me. So
Right.
I can see, I was trying to walk through what you were saying. I'm like, I guess I can see that as what is meant by a safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the safe space argument is the abandonment of feeling judged. That's why you'll leave a comment recklessly, because in your world, no one's going to come for me, or if they do, it doesn't matter. They're not real. There's
Right.
this
Turn them off.
there's this illusion. So that's a safe space of culture.
Okay.
And of course, the safe space of being that I have freedom to express myself. So there's a duality to both. But there's safety is not always in a sense, how can I word this, a positive thing. Because you feel
Right.
like you're in a good place or a place where no one can touch you, you might come at someone more recklessly. Or like I said, the vice versa, like our relationships right now. That, man, the fact that you were able to meet Joe Day and have your relationship with him, me and him have our relationship. Like I said, it was my first time meeting Joe last year. And it was just like, I see him my whole life. There was nothing weird where I met him. I was like, I've been knowing this dude for a year plus, a couple years plus. This is normal. And me and him talk regularly now. And so, yes, there's also that safety. But I did want to clarify what I meant by that. Is that people do have this sense of recklessness because they feel like things are not real. Or they're able to desensitize their human compassion to what is real, what's not real. Almost the equivalent sometimes, and I really don't want to put these two together, but I think this will kind of draw it. It's the equivalent when you're driving. When people are driving, you say some crazy stuff when you driving. But will you say that crazy stuff to that person if they park? That's a whole different interview. Now, me, I'm crazy. I might do both. I'm just. That's what I'm talking about. It's that there's this recklessness because no one can really hear me. Even though I'm typing, they can't really hear me. So that's what I was trying to clarify. Go ahead, Joe. My bad. I just wanted to clarify that.
I mean, they can just in a certain situation and context. Again,
Right.
It comes down to what is the nature of the relationship. Are you just somebody who's trying to drive by evangelize? Are you just trying to drive by correct or something along those lines? Or are you actually investing in every conversation being an outlet to be able to engage and dialogue and build and all of that kind of stuff, even if it's precipitated on the idea that you don't agree with one another? And that's one of the things that we've low-key hoped as a group could be on display with this show in particular, because guys, it's in the thesis statement. We're gonna at some point in time piss off everybody because of the topics that we're gonna address. If you haven't left one of our streams then hang around longer, man. Like you'll get there. Your turn's coming. And I know because it's literally happened to me on the air where I've gotten riled up on the air. Now, a couple of things that I think we need to be aware of. And this is an extension of viewing this from the lens, and this is wild. I'm fascinated that I am the one who keeps going back to the hinge point towards the younger. Because for those of you that don't know, as a general statement, not 100% of the time, but as a general statement, I tend closer to the millennial side or the Gen X side. So I tend to be the hinge point in communication between millennials and Gen Xers. T and Tierra are ones that tend more towards the millennial and Gen Z crowd, either because of age or just because of what their lifestyle is, the work that they do, whatever. For a variety of reasons, these are the spots that we have found ourselves in. But being so immersed into the digital ministry and digital media world, it has allowed me and help or from help with help from my brother-in-law, who's something like 15 years younger than me. And so he is my gateway into the Gen Z perspective. And I get to see the world through Gen Z eyes, through him. And how does he deal with rebuilding your faith and rebuilding a relationship with God in a world where it's not a separate world? The digital world is not a separate world. It's overlaid over top of our world. It's just an extension. We view it as separate because, again, to go back to the toolbox analogy, we liken it more to a toolbox. But coming behind us, no such dichotomy exists. And so being aware of that means that we need to be aware of what's actually happening. I think your mileage may vary on when you try to bring in COVID into the conversation and what it did and didn't do. I think the mileage may vary there. T, I am going to push back on what you said, because I think in some situations, what you said might be truth, but it just, all COVID did was turn the volume up on what already existed. What social media does is only turn the volume up on what already existed. That's part of why I looked back. Like, I was in this weird spot in 2020 because I was wet behind the ears and I was just mad at the world. I was just mad as all get down because I was watching Christians systematically fail miserably in handling a global crisis. Because we gotta get back to the building. That's the true church. Is it? Because catch this, watch this. Because both of you guys know where I'm going with this, but watch this. Last November, I entered into a context. I flew halfway across the frigging country and stepped into a context that I'd never been in and was welcomed with open arms. Why? Because the pump was primed from the digital context, and I had the opportunity to engage with an entire church community from digital in a time where things were a lot more complicated getting together. And the architecture was there as a holdover from a time where it was predominantly a digital collection of the saints. And I engaged there and I was welcomed with open arms, and it acted as a gateway into that world that now that is a home for me. But you don't get there without the digital component. Again, we're turning up what's already there. A lot of people never came back to church after COVID because they weren't connected in the first place.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to blame COVID for not knowing your neighbors. How often did you have a conversation with your neighbor before COVID? But we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to have that conversation about what already took place. And yes, again, I go back to where I started this line of dialogue. There are examples, there are issues, there are people that, yes, that's the unfortunate reality is that now, connections have been severed and all of that kind of stuff because we had, I don't know, however long it was, months, where we weren't allowed to be face to face, and relationships were impacted, and social anxiety was developed. And I'm not trying to ignore the reality of that, but when we're looking at this articulately, and if we are going to try and be able to shine a light as the older generation, that whether we like it or not, the guys coming behind us, they're looking to us, especially our generation T. They're looking to us because we still are close enough to speak their language. And you're a different case because you do speak that language. But a lot of people who would say what you're saying, or that are your age, that are in your role as a senior pastor, as a church planner, and all of that kind of stuff would be woefully disconnected from this world. So you kind of sit as this exception to the rule because you've made a conscious choice to try and engage that world, to try and embrace, okay, this is just another street corner, this is just another platform, this is just another opportunity for me to engage people, to preach, to do these things, to give solid teaching around, and all of that kind of stuff. Again, we're highlighting what's already there. That's all
Right.
that's been happening.
And that's what I'm saying COVID did, is it took a situation where people were already slipping into this idea of isolating and it magnified it. That was a reality. I don't care what you say. And no, I'm not blaming the whole crux of COVID-19 being people's crisis period. That was just a thing that, but it was a thing that did show humanity in this moment of wanting to have this form of isolation. And social media was already taking that form. And listen, there was some benefits from it. I think it was crazy. You got some amazing content creators out of that session. I did some amazing work in that session. Like I said, I met a lot of people because I was in the house. I couldn't go out that much. But it did go ahead and fuel that social anxiety. Now there is more of a fear to make those connections outside because of that anxiety. That's the reality, Joe. Where you want to pay word black or not, it fed that reality more. That people were more scared to make those connections. That's why people do have a hard time coming to church, because it's like, well, if I already struggle going, now if I go, I'm going to struggle more. And social media, and let me say this, because I'm not against people having a church on social media. I'm not against fellowship on social media. I think that's incredible. But I do think there is a component that people do have higher social medias than they ever had before. I'm one of them. I be honest with you, if I keep it a further stat, might be even a little shout to Apostle. I, I was cool with the aspect of having a social church, but as a consider our members, they desire to come together. But it was kind of cool to see us in that capacity for a season. Now obviously I was at the church, we're doing live streams and things like that. But the curiosity in me was like, that was really cool. I want to see how this works. But also the social in me was like, this is good, because when we're done, we're done. We hit the done button, and we go home. All that is a reality too. That's what I'm saying. I'm bringing a whole picture in how people interact today. Is that people today have a hard time having more interactions in person they do online. And I think that's because the world feels more unsafe. You talk to people, they feel unsafe. They feel unsafe. I have a older woman around Aunt's age who, well, she's a little bit older. I try to make you sound old, bro. Forgive me. This far from me. So, but she used to feel comfortable jogging around her neighborhood at night, versus now we worked on schedules like, because I don't feel comfortable at night. Because I just feel like people just want to talk to me. Now I had to be careful, because even the more she's like, yeah, I jog in the morning, and sometimes people just want to jog with me and talk with me. And she's like, I ain't gonna talk to you. I'm just gonna ignore you. A part of me was like, that is so cold. That was my judgment break kicking in. But then the other part was just like, but truthfully, that's the world we live in. You really don't know the person jogging next to you is going to do something weird. So I really fought her for thinking like that. But I think my heart was discouraged because there was a disconnecting. There was not opportunity to connect. That's what I'm saying. From our society and our world growing up, Joe, that's the disconnect. Is that people feel unsafe doing stuff like that, which was once safe for us. And I'm not blaming social media, because truthfully, there's a lot of work behind that. And you will know there's a lot of work before coming into that, before social media even took form, that kind of was changing those dynamics, period. However, I am saying that people do feel more safe on social media. And so I don't know if we're disagreeing. I'm just clarifying my point. I'm just saying that, A, I think that it didn't help either. It kind of just brought this monster more, or I'm not even gonna call it a monster. It brought this reality that people like, I just want my own space, and this
Yeah,
makes me feel safe.
I like the word reality,
Yeah.
because I think it is a reality. Like you said, this digital space has a lot of benefits as far as building community in places that you could never reach. one of the things that I learned through the podcasting, was, man, I could reach believers around the world and connect to them
Yeah.
and find out what they're doing in their part of the country, the world, the state, and I didn't have to leave my little room. I could sit right right in front of a
Mhm.
camera and go to Australia, right? I could sit right in front of a camera and go to Brazil, I and so for me, I guess, to what Joe was saying earlier about, what I've tried to do is I've tried to learn how to incorporate these things and fight against my proclivities, my personal preference that, oh, well, I'm a person that likes to sit across from somebody and have a meal and talk to them. But it's learning that, well, wait a minute. Okay. Minus, you know, actually being in the same room, I can do that. As a matter of fact, there are like you were saying, Joe, there are people that know you as if they're like, wait a minute, he doesn't live here? like no, he doesn't live here. He lives in Pennsylvania. What? I thought he was, you know, if Kavan goes somewhere with me, people like, that's the guy that's on there with Monday Motivation with you, and I'm like, this is so weird. It's like that's how they know him. Like so. I think understanding that, number one, the digital space is never going away. Forget about it.
Yeah.
It's here to stay.
Right.
Number two, people are going to use it for good and for bad. People are going to use it in a healthy way and in an unhealthy way. But it is what it is. It exists. And so I think that's why we're having the conversation, because we're trying to figure out, well, what is helpful? What is,
What's the balance?
what is the like you said, the balancing act that we do? Or do we have to? Do we even have to balance? Do we just jump, go with the flow of what's happening and what's going on and learn how to navigate the fact that these things are the way they are? Because this terrain
Mhm.
is this terrain. You walk into this space, and I'll say, personally, I've learned a lot from both of you guys.
Mhm.
First, TC, because I think he's the one that really introduced me to this space, right? And that there's like a whole audience out there, there's a whole world out there, right? And then Joe kind of educating me to the degrees of this, especially from a ministry standpoint. We had a discussion, what was that, 2 weeks ago, about digital ministry and the components of it. You have, you've got the digital ministry, you've got the goods and services, you've got the evangelism piece, then you've got the digital church. And it's like, whoa, there's these components to this, and there's degrees to engaging in dimensions, I guess, to engaging in this space. And it's like, okay, we need to pull out a guidebook and everybody needs to study. We need to take a
Mhm.
class on how to exist in this space.
Tune in because I'm writing a book.
Nice.
So
So T, I don't inherently disagree with a lot of what you said on at either point when you were talking. When you were talking before and I responded, and then when you were talking again, both times you raised very valid points. So to a degree, we are in agreement. I think you are taking isolated situations and applying sweeping statements, and that's where we disagree with one another. I think so part of where I come from and why I have to be very aware of what is the line of saying, hey, to all of you guys that are watching right now. It will be all love once we get off the stream. But at the end of the day, we are going to agree to disagree on this one. There is a point where you hit that, because otherwise you just keep chasing the tail. You just keep doing the thing. But so I'm trying to be aware of that, because for me, in real time, I was young in the faith. I'm a passionate guy, and I just was angry at everything having to do with the Sunday morning model, because I saw those sweeping statements all over the place, and words like fear being thrown around recklessly and stuff like that. And so but when you're just pissed off and you get in front of a camera and you start rattling off these different things that come through your mind, how much of that is helpful? And for me, I was in a context where I was not really being helpful. Like, yes, I can draw out the good, but I can draw out the good only because God can use a broken watch to tell a person what time it is twice a day. That's just the reality.
That's clever.
And so when you make these statements and you say that's why people, now, mind you, there is a difference between when you are having a conversation with a group of people from Colorado in the context of this is what happened in Colorado, in the context of this is what this group of people is, and all of that kind of stuff, then sure, use general statements, because everybody's using the same language. Everybody has the same context. Everybody understands, hey, in our sphere, in this corner, this is what I saw. You don't need to go the extra mile of saying those things when it's a localized context. We're not in a localized context. And while I don't think I think there's a bridge too far. You brought out the whole cancel culture thing before. You didn't use that word. I used that word. But you were talking about, let somebody come out here and say something reckless on Twitter, and the angry people will come for them, versus, something gets drawn out of context and suddenly somebody slandered because they said something and it was pulled out of context. And those dueling realities, I think there's a bridge too far when we feel like we've got to walk on eggshells and all of that kind of stuff. But I go back to optics matter. And so when you're saying these things about what caused what and this and that, just be very, very, very aware of the plurality of contexts of people that could be hearing that, and how they handle the digital world, how they handle what their life looked like. Because for some people, this is not a matter of, oh, now I'm scared because of this. For some people, it's a matter of they don't have a local context. They live in the middle of nowhere. We talked last week with Rico. It was one of the things that I had said to him, because he mentioned about how when video calling became a thing during his second stint in overseas with the military, that it was a game changer for being able to hear from family and all this kind of stuff. There's context where people are isolated. And COVID didn't have a thing to do about a thing. And so I'm trying to tote the line of, I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm just telling you, brother to brother, when we have these conversations, because this is so tumultuous, because this is such an arena where so many people have said, you are not valid for having a digital community, and that digital community is oxymoronic, it's now on us to be careful and to make sure of what we are saying. And
so I can agree, disagree, but I see the trigger. But we can agree, disagree. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'll just leave it there. Mm-hmm. But I can see the trigger.
Yeah, I think that walking in these worlds. I know for me, I'm one of those people that I kind of remain a student. You know, I don't see myself as an expert in any of these things. So I'm kind of just learning and taking it in, and like, huh. Now, some things, back to a statement that Cedric made earlier, that I think could be misconstrued, is that I do think God guides us in this, and that He shows us where and what we're to do. And sometimes what we do has nothing to do with an algorithm. It has nothing to do with what's popular. I think all of us, have that what do you call it? Resistance to doing what's popular just
Mhm.
because it's popular, right? We all agree on I don't like doing what's popular because it's popular. If it's something that is relevant and we feel led that we need to talk about this, then talk about it. But if it's popular and we're doing it because it's popular and the algorithm is going to pick it up, then I don't like that. Right.
Right.
So
Right.
at the end of the day, I think when we're looking at this digital world, this digital space, it is a legit space. And I think that's the part that we have to break through and say, this is real. There
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
real relationships being made. There are real connections happening. There are real businesses that are totally digital. There are real communities that are totally digital. There are, and that this is actually a legit thing. And I think it's just now, you know, uh, using COVID, as the springboard. From that point till now, I think I am just now grasping the reality of this, because it probably has been going on forever. And I just didn't know until COVID said, "Hey, here's a digital world," right? And it's like, wow, duh. I feel like the biggest dummy in the world. There's a digital world. And it makes me feel old, of course, right? Because the younger people, like, duh, what are you talking about? There's a digital world, and I'm like, hey, there's a digital world out there
Did
like
you
this.
guys know that there's these things called podcasts?
Yeah, like, did you know discourse? When somebody told me about, I was like, I don't disco? What the disco
Discord.
dancing? No,
Discourse. Uh,
Discord.
bro,
like,
you
I was like,
okay,
what?
boomer. Oh wow,
Hey,
Discord, Discord.
right? That's what I'm saying.
Bless
That's
you.
what I'm saying. Discord, right?
Bless you.
Not disco.
Oh,
Discourse.
Uh,
It's Discord. I'm like, disco dancing on social media. No.
Bless you.
wow. Phenomenal.
Mhm.
Right. So but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That
no fail.
for me, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
how do I embrace this as a reality, as a legitimate space, a legitimate world that you can function in? I was talking to a lady from Jamaica last week, right?
Mhm.
From one of my prayer videos. She reached out and was asking for prayer and this, that, and that. So I had emailed me, and I'm talking to a lady from Jamaica
Yeah. Yeah.
through this these pixels and what I don't even know how it's happening, right? But it's happening, that we're connected, and it's like, okay, we have to accept that this is a real thing. It's not going anywhere. How do we function in it? How do we navigate this world? What makes sense and what doesn't make sense? As you guys talked at the top, what language, how am I talking on here? And I tell Joe all the time, like, hey, something sounds, kind of weird. Like, hey, this is what somebody
Mhm.
might hear. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right.
Because I don't, I'm thinking, yeah, everybody knows what this is. No, they don't. They don't know what
Right.
that is. And so again, I think if we're gonna say what's helpful,
Mhm.
one of my things that I would say is helpful is being humble and being willing to
Mhm.
listen and learn. If I
Yeah.
stay humble and I'm willing to listen and learn, I feel like this space can be a world that I can excel in for the glory of God, for years to come.
Yeah. Can I speak to a temptation? I think T is going to vibe hard with what I'm going to say. You kind of touched on it for a second, Ant. But when you're creating content and you can see through the matrix, right? You're a student of the game enough that you understand what triggers people to engage, what triggers people to watch, the thumbnail of it all, the content of it all. The biggest difference between T and I is T is a student of predominantly YouTube, and I am predominantly a student of broadcasting and podcasting. Not to say we're unaware of the other one's worlds, but because I'm also a YouTuber and stuff like that, as evidence from how some of you guys are watching this. But the temptation's there, right? You see them like, man, I feel like I'm a solid teacher, and I just if I just tweak this little thing here, then I can get more people, and then they'll hear the message and all of that kind of stuff. And then it's not mustache twirling, it's not big grandiose statements. It's death by 1,000 cuts. So to any of you guys watching that are content creators that wrestle with this idea of how do I be helpful, how do I conduct myself, how do I be a content creator and still be authentic to Christ and all of that, just I want you to hear that we recognize that there is a very, very real temptation to start to negotiate down your way down that road of doing the things that you know will sell, even if they aren't completely in alignment with what your convictions are.
Exactly. Run from that. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. Run. Because you always be chasing the horse. If you don't, you always be chasing. And
so let me ask this before you finish the statement. I want both of you guys to chime in on this. How do you focus on the mission without, and both of you guys are very knowledgeable about this. How do you focus on the mission and not let the analytics dictate what you do in this digital space?
That's a loaded question. Yeah, I think the matrix are the same way as podcasting, YouTube, TikTok, whatever you do. Yeah. There's always going to be this pull to do what's trending. That's what they teach you. Because if you're a content creator, I'm pretty sure you're investing most of your time on what works, because you put a video out that had 5 views. They didn't do to your expectation, right? I know I'm using 5. It may not.
And three of them were probably you hitting it up from other accounts.
Right.
We've all been there.
This feeling of I put my heart and soul, I created, and no one's watching it. So what do I need to do? And so then you go on a hunt to figure out what works, and you discover analytics. They teach you your basics. Your basics are always going to be in the creation is, how does this platform work? Why are they want to watch your content, right? I don't care what platform you're on, they're always going to tell you to do how-to videos. Every single platform, especially on YouTube. How-to videos are never going to die, right? So you hear things like that. You hear things about what's current, what does the app offer? You know, TikTok is very big on features. YouTube is very big on wordplay and features. And it's constantly evolving. The algorithm is constantly changing, right? And so that's in your mind. And you know, I can only speak as a Christian content creator. That can be hard because God is telling you to do something, right? And majority of the time, and I'm pretty sure you gentlemen might be able to attest, the thing that God's telling you to do is going to a lot of times counter the way algorithms and things are structured to work. A lot, you know, for me, I'm gonna go ahead and put a lot, because there's a sense of, well, which one do I serve? Now, being more mature in it, you realize it's not about which one can you serve. It's about using what you have to the best of your capacity. And so for me, when I create a video, I am gauging my audience because I've talked to my audience now. I know what they want. And so that might cause me to actually ignore what my analytics says I should make. But however, there is a responsibility that me and my audience, or my, I'd say community for me, have established a relationship that this is beneficial for them.
Yeah.
You know, which in my degree, when I'm looking at scripture and when I'm talking with God, this is what they need to hear. So God, we're going to speak to this issue. However, as a creator, right? Because that's, I think, the part that gets iffy is that we're creators, and that there's I think me and you have this conversation a lot, Joe. There's a sense of art behind this, right? We may not be a actual painter or something like that, but it's an art of creation. So there's stuff that you want to explore. So for me, it's like when things are trending, I'm like, that's very interesting. I as a creator, I might want to try that. But my basis is always going to be, um, what is God saying to my audience? What does my audience need? And that's how I create. And that might be hard for people, you know, and I totally understand. Not here to force my way on anyone, but I'm saying for starters, you want to establish your why from the get go. I think a lot of times when people get into content creation, the why is not even there. It's, I just want to create stuff. And a long time ago, I used to be like, that's fine, just start creating. You know, because as a YouTuber starting off, I was like, yeah, that's the goal, create. I think now if I talk to someone, because these algorithm changes on every platform, I'm like, well, you got to reestablish your why, period. So where you're making content creation about candles, you know, if you don't have a firm why or why you're doing something, you're going to often a lot of times be discouraged because the platform's always going to give you what you're always looking for. And so you got to resolve your own create. Now, if I'm saying this to a Christian, which I love that my wife just started making videos. It's been a very incredible process. I'm not trying to embarrass her, but she started off like out the gate getting 1Ks. And I was like, go girl. And then she got some ones that are lower. And she's like, babe, I'm discouraged. Should I create? And I had to remind her, well, what's your why? Why are you doing this? Well, I'm doing this because God told me to do it. Yeah, okay, cool. That's nice and all. And I'm not trying to cheapen that, right?
No.
Because I think it's a powerful. But I'm like, what exactly? Let's get very distinct. What is God telling you to do? Why does it matter? Well, God is telling me when I pray for others, it challenges me to be consistent. Then that's why you create. So in a space where you don't feel like creating, that's why you create. And it's validated because she's like, babe, I don't even know this person at my job is watching my videos. I'm like, so yeah, and that's further motivation, right? To say continue to create because you don't know who you're impacting. And so we show up and hit record not just because we're just trying to create. We should be able to record because someone might need that daily encouragement. Someone might need that daily prayer. That gamer might need to know they're loved and validated. That's why I hit record. And that super exceeds the analytics because that need is there. Now, what's crazy, and this is my last thing, and I'm going to let Joe go on this. What I found was amazing, and it's that when you do that, I don't know, this is my little cliche, so don't attack me too hard on it. I believe God makes the algorithm bend to your needs. Like there's videos that should not have worked that worked. And I don't know. And like I said, there's no direct science. That is me just being me. You know, it's like, yeah, God made that work anyway. Everyone said that was going to fail. Everything I studied YouTube-wise said that was going to fail. And God did something different with it. Because at the end of the day, if it's his will, it is his will. I really believe that. And so, and to flip that on the side that are not Christians, there's things that people have done. That's what's amazing about these platforms is that you get to be unique. There's things that they're telling you to do, like be like this person. And then you're like, well, I'm not going to be like this person. And that unique person goes viral because they're being themselves, right? Yeah. And then that becomes the next module, right? Well, now be like this guy. And so I think that's what I'm trying to say is that when we do things the way God's designed us to as Christian content creators, I believe God has a way of making it fit the way He wants to fit. And if it's going to go viral, it's going to go viral. But that shouldn't be your focus. Your why should always be something more deeper than that, because those things are always changing. If you hear anything I'm going to say, you'll be a miserable content creator if you create from that space, because things are changing. I've been that content creator where it's like, how come my damn videos don't work? I said just like that, and mad, well, I'm not recording another thing because I'm coming from that space.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about all I'm going to say about the whole God influencing things thing. I'm going to say that's interesting. Oh, that was good. Well played. So, but to answer your question, I'm going to answer it in a couple to a couple of different groups. If you happen to be watching this and you're a content creator and you're not a Christian, go in peace. I don't care. Like, do what you want to do. Like, it's like you're not playing. This is not your playbook. So you feel no compulsion to like. I would tell you as an artist to embrace the love of the game. You know what I mean? Like, just embrace the love of the game. Like, if you happen to be doing this for something outside of for the glory of God, and you just want motivation for why to keep creating content, there's got to come a point where you just love the game enough that you're willing to deal with trying to find your authentic voice and trying to find what you are, what you want to create, and all of that kind of stuff. For sure. Now, I'm gonna hit this from. I just think it's just a different angle. It's not necessarily in like opposition or anything to T. I just a different angle, because for me, I can tell you that my why changed so often along the way that at any given point in time, me focusing on my why was not helpful. So for some people, that why am I doing it is so ambiguous and really just comes to, I am an artist and I want to use this platform to create a form of art that glorifies God. Again, we're working on now. I already addressed the group that's not looking to do that. I'm addressing the group that is. So yes, you can make the argument that okay, so then your why is just that. Okay, fine, but that why can shift. That why can change. Is my point. So it goes back to, how do you view people? What is in your heart towards other people, towards conveying truth, towards doing these different things, towards approaching these conversations, all of that kind of stuff? What are the base fundamentals that will be applicable in how you address other people, regardless of whether or not it's in person or over a digital space? Now, some of us elected to take, like, okay, so this is what works, right? And I'll be the first one to admit, Ant, you're teaching a sound, and I've said this to T off air. I think I've said this to you too. You're teaching a sound. It's solid teaching, but in a lot of ways, you went straight down the middle. You threw that ball straight down the middle to the batter, waiting for it. Shorter form, educational, dare I say, how-to-esque videos on different spiritual concepts or different things like that. No problems. I have not a problem in the world. But that reflects in the fact that you have, I don't know, something like double the follower. If on YouTube specifically, a significant amount more of followers. Podcasting is a different world, but with YouTube, what you're creating, it's just straight down the pike. Mm-hmm. I decided to go, okay, I know what's popular, but I'm not going to do any of that because I'm going to do this thing over here, and basically torpedoed any hope of embracing the algorithm and helping the algorithm do what the algorithm does and all of that kind of stuff, because I didn't see anybody doing what I was trying to do. Not really. Like there are components of it, especially with the Matthew series. Like, oh, so you decided to do a Bible study podcast? How inventive! Like, yes, there are aspects of that are very, very reflective of what is tried and true and all of that. But the approach that I took, especially because I was speaking in a way that was more palatable to an international audience versus a domestic audience, not friendly to algorithms doing their thing. But it was just a matter of trying enough times, being willing to experiment, and being willing to create art that aligned with the fundamentals of what it is that I felt was important. And that bleeds actively over into my Ninja Turtles channel as well. The stuff that I'm not doing for ministry. All of that is all family-friendly content. I made that choice because I know that TMNT is an IP that attracts people of all age groups. Like, I'm old enough to remember the Mirage comics. I'm old enough to remember the 80s cartoon, the 90s movies, and that earlier side of the fandom when they were part of Archie comics and all of that kind of stuff. For some people watching, I know because I talk to their parents, that there are people that are watching that, like, they're on Rampus with 2012. They're on Rampus, the new movie that just came out. They're younger Turtles fans. So I'm not going to get on there getting out of pocket. And also I have a deep desire to see the different groups of the fandom be able to cooperate with one another and embrace the fact that we all love this IP, and we can all love this IP because it has different generational aspects to it. That like, you've got your version, I've got mine, this person has theirs, all of that kind of stuff. There are fundamentals that I drew into that, even though that's not necessarily specifically to glorify God. God didn't tell me to start a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles channel or any of that kind of stuff. It's just convictions, I guess. And I struggle to use that word. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a conviction, but it's something that it's a tug that I feel like, oh, okay, if I'm gonna set up shop in this corner of the internet, then I'm going to bring this into this corner of the internet. I wouldn't get on there and heal at all, whereas I would get on Let It Rip and heal on Let It Rip because this is more of a, dare I say, edgier, dare I say, and all within the realms, right? We're not going to get on here and start doing a George Carlin bit and all that kind of stuff on the air or anything else like that. But within reason, this is edgier content, and this almost comes with a, you know, for mature audiences sort of disclaimer to it, because we're talking about real life situations, real life things like that, but making sure that connective tissue is there from every single point. And then when you find something that you feel compelled towards, that I want to do this, I want to be the voice that's speaking to this, you with gaming and Christianity, or gaming and pastorship, and all, and trying to, you know, marry those worlds and try to be a voice in there. All the time when I engaged with the nerd culture community, or I've engaged with the goth lifestyle community and all of that kind of stuff, and I can take these principles into those worlds because the foundations and fundamentals are there. And that goes to really the entire thesis statement of how can we be helpful? Well, there's a lot of different ways to I'm going to use a word that has a lot of different meanings to it. Manifest helpfulness within the digital space, godly helpfulness. There's a million ways to do it because everybody's unique, and it is democratized the ability to be able to get out there and speak something, for better and for worse. So having those fundamentals of to touch tone on every single part of this conversation. To, am I drive-by evangelizing? Am I hyping up and overstating what God's about to do? Am I just looking to slay somebody with the truth? Am I trying to have a conversation with somebody? Am I trying to engage a community? Am I trying to bring life into a community? I would even argue that my whole thing of, you know what? Yeah, in this stream, in the last 2 hours and 10 minutes, I've agreed with I've disagreed openly with both of these gentlemen. And I have the full confidence that we will hit the off button. We will have our post-production meeting. It'll be all love. It'll be all good. Because we understand that we can disagree with one another and not throw everything out just because we don't stand on every single solitary principle. You don't need to in order to cultivate community. So even down to the turtles thing, my desire to help people see we can be a community in all forms, in person, online, whatever. We can be a community. Sure, maybe that is bleeding over into the turtles world as well, because that's something that I hold deeply to. And so it's influencing these different ways.
Amen.
Yes, sir.
Well, we're getting ready to bring this plane into a landing. We want to hear from you about today's stream. If you're watching, lurking, we want to hear about some of your questions or concerns. And feel free, if you want to leave them now, we're waiting here. If not, definitely you can comment on the stream at any time you want to. Also, you can message us as well. Feel free to do so. With that being said, I want to say this stream has been really good in the sense of informative. It's been powerful. It's even been controversial. All those things that make Let It Rip amazing, because you can have all those beautiful moments in one stream. So I'm gonna turn it back over to you, Joe, and we'll go from there.
Okay, guys. So TLDR of the stream, be like Cedric. No, seriously, shout out to Cedric for being in the chat and engaging and all that kind of stuff. Like T said, we value hearing from you guys, so feel free, guys. For those of you that engage in this sort of thing, happy Easter. Happy Resurrection Day, whatever you want to call it. I know that Easter can be a spicy word for some, but regardless of what you call it, my hope is that you can find a body of believers and engage with them, or at the very least engage with God and on this day. So guys, until next week, where we are again live Friday and Saturday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. I will let you do the math on your local time zone. Until next week, guys, remember two very important things: that you are prayed for and you are loved deeply. All right. Peace, y'all.